Brought to you by Thomas Allgaier and Frennis. This edition highlights key LinkedIn posts on next-gen vehicle intelligence in weeks 15 and 16. Frennis supports Tier 1 automotive suppliers with early-stage market validation for their R&D efforts by combining secondary research, direct OEM expert interviews, and facilitated customer meetings. You can find more info in the description. So, welcome everyone to the deep dive. We are constantly tracking all the shifting currents in the mobility industry. And, well, today we are looking at the top vehicle intelligence trends surfacing across our curated sources from calendar weeks 15 and 16.
Right.
And our goal today is to really just cut through the noise and figure out what is actually changing under the hood for you, the listener.
Yeah, and right now, automakers are essentially promising us vehicles that think and communicate like a genius-level AI, right?
Right.
But when you sort of peel back the marketing, they're trying to run that hyper-advanced software on what is basically the digital equivalent of a 1990s fax machine.
The entire industry is obsessed with moving past the whole software-defined vehicle, the SDV, straight into the AI-defined vehicle, or ADV. But the sources we're reviewing show this massive collision between, theoretical software capabilities and brutal hardware realities.
It is a phenomenal bottleneck. Everyone wants the vehicle to be this intelligent agent. But let's look at the vision first because it is undeniably compelling.
Sure.
Indrajit Kadke laid out the core mechanism of what an AV actually is. And he argues that we're moving away from shipping cars with an app for everything.
Right, because right now it's all menus.
Exactly. You aren't going to dig through 3 layers of touchscreen menus to find the rear defroster or adjust the ambient lighting. Instead, the architecture shifts to intent-based requests.
So wait, meaning you just tell the car what you want to experience rather than pulling the individual levers yourself?
Precisely. You just tell the vehicle, adapt the cabin for comfort, and then the AI has to orchestrate the climate control, adjust the seat massagers, maybe dim the lighting, and alter the suspension dampening all simultaneously.
Wow.
It acts as an orchestrator, reasoning out the steps to achieve your intent.
Okay, I see the appeal of that. I really do. And automakers are leaning into this heavily right now. Jean-Philippe Sanso and Benoit Cullen both highlighted Nissan's new long-term roadmap.
Oh, I saw.
Yeah, Nissan is aiming to put this exact kind of AI-driven intelligence at the core of 90% of their vehicle lineup by 2030. They aren't treating AI as a premium add-on feature anymore. They are positioning it as the foundation of the car itself.
Yeah, I saw that timeline, and I think we need to take a serious step back here.
You think it's too ambitious?
2030 is basically one single product lifecycle away in automotive years. When we look at what is actually rolling off the assembly lines today, a lot of this ADV terminology is just incredibly premature.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Raul Arredondo was pretty blunt about this in his post. He suggests that right now, slapping AI define on a press release is largely a marketing ploy.
Right, just to get funding.
Exactly. It's a way to attract venture capital and pump up valuation.
Well, I have to say, I agree with Arredondo there. Hold on. If we look at the actual physical architecture of a modern car, how can anyone claim it's AI defined?
They really can't.
Thomas M. points out this absolute absurdity in his post. He notes that the vast majority of vehicles currently in production are still running on roughly 150 monolithic legacy electronic control units, or ECUs.
Right.
We are talking about cars dragging around 5,000 meters of copper wiring just to get these little isolated chips to talk to each other over legacy CAN buses.
And that is exactly why the 2030 timeline is so suspicious. Thomas notes that you simply cannot have an AI-defined vehicle without first having hyperconverged compute.
Wait, let's break that down for the listener really quickly. What exactly is hyperconverged compute in the context of a car?
So think of traditional cars as having 100 different tiny brains. Okay.
One brain controls the windshield wipers, another controls the brakes, another handles the radio. They are all separate low-power chips.
Right, those are the ECUs.
Exactly. Hyperconverged compute means ripping all of those tiny brains out and replacing them with 1 or 2 massive data center-grade supercomputers right in the middle of the chassis. You centralize the processing power.
Got it.
Because until you do that, you cannot run advanced AI. It requires a massive unified pool of memory and processing speed that 150 scattered ECUs simply cannot provide.
So essentially, legacy OEMs are taking a hardware-defined car, bolting a software-updatable infotainment screen into the dashboard, and just calling it an SDV.
Basically, yeah.
Well, meanwhile, Thomas points out that Tesla is pulling in $1.3 billion in full self-driving revenue alone. And they can monetize that software at scale purely because their physical architecture was actually built from the ground up with centralized compute.
It is all about the foundation. I mean, you cannot build a skyscraper on a wooden foundation.
That's a great way to put it. And trying to transition from those 150 scattered chips to a centralized brain is causing what Hicham Samudi accurately describes as integration hell for European legacy automakers.
Integration hell. Let's dig into the mechanics of that, because if you are an OEM, you don't build the whole car yourself. You buy the seats from one supplier, the brakes from another, the cameras from another.
Correct. And historically, you just bolted those physical pieces together.
Right.
But in a software-defined world, performance is emergent. The software has to connect everything. Samudi points out that legacy OEMs are trying to build unified platforms using 50 or more different Tier 1 suppliers.
Oh, wow.
And here's the fatal flaw. Those suppliers consider their software code to be proprietary intellectual property.
So they refuse to share it. That is wild if we think about that like a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine buying a phone where the camera lens was programmed by Sony, the battery by Panasonic, and the screen by Samsung. Right. If they all put up proprietary firewalls and refuse to let their code interact, the phone would be a total brick. You couldn't even take a photo because the camera app couldn't tell the battery to supply power to the screen.
That is exactly the dynamic playing out in automotive right now. If your AI wants to orchestrate the cabin, but the seat supplier's code won't talk to the HVAC supplier's code because they use different operating languages.
And they refuse to open their APIs.
Yes. Then the AI is totally useless. But, to be fair to the legacy players, Imran Khan brought up a really vital counter perspective.
Oh, what did he say?
He argues that European auto isn't collapsing, it is just actively restructuring. The future market leader isn't necessarily going to be the company with the best stamping plant. It's going to be the company that masters this exact integration capability.
Well, they still know how to build incredibly complex, durable machines at scale.
Exactly.
And getting this integration right requires massive engineering breakthroughs on the physical side, which actually brings up H. Manguino's post, which completely reframed how I view this entire shift.
Yeah, that was a great post.
Right. With all this obsession over code and algorithms, the hardware engineers are actually the unsung heroes of this entire era.
Absolutely, because we tend to forget that software has a physical footprint. Compute generates heat.
Right, but why is it suddenly such a crisis in a car? I mean, engines get hot. Cars are used to dealing with heat.
Sure, engines get hot, but engine heat is managed mechanically. Manguino notes that when you centralize AI compute modules, when you run billions of operations per second on a single system on chip, the thermal density is astronomical.
Okay.
If you put a data center grade processor into a traditional plastic ECU housing in the dashboard, it would literally melt itself into slag within minutes.
Oh my God.
So hardware teams are being forced to solve the hardest physical thermodynamics problems in a generation.
Right. So they're having to engineer vapor chambers, aerospace grade printed circuit boards, and advanced thermal interface materials just to keep these AI brains from frying.
Exactly.
Manguino also mentions the networking cables. You can't run AI data over old copper wire. You need 10 plus gigabit per second Ethernet links.
Good luck with that on a bumpy road.
Seriously. Try keeping a delicate, high-speed data connection perfectly stable across a vehicle that is vibrating violently on a pothole-filled highway for 15 years.
The physical constraints are staggering. But we are starting to see this execution actually happen in the real world. Sean Sehi shared a fantastic analogy about the Ferrari Enzo.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
When the Enzo debuted in 2002, the public thought it looked bizarre. It was aggressive, it didn't have the classic elegant curves people expected from Ferrari. But Sehi points out that it was designed architecture first. Function and aerodynamics dictated the form.
So breakthrough architectures always look strange and make the old guard uncomfortable before they become the new industry benchmark.
Exactly. And we are seeing that leap happen today. Magnus Osberg highlighted Mercedes successfully rolling out their MB.OS on the all-electric C-Class. They are proving that a scalable, centralized software platform can actually work in mass production.
Yeah. And Ralph Brandstetter showcased Volkswagen's aggressive push with their China Electronic Architecture, the CEA. They are integrating onboard agentic AI right now in a massive rollout.
It's happening.
But here's where the plot thickens. Executing those massive centralized computing architectures requires a level of silicon and software capability that traditional automakers simply do not possess in-house.
No, they don't.
They have to partner with massive tech giants to pull this off. That creates a brutal battle over who actually controls the vehicle.
Jack Dunkley posed the critical question regarding this ecosystem shift. He asked, do OEMs actually want to be software companies, or are they resigning themselves to just becoming integrators?
Which is a tough pill to swallow.
Really tough. Because if the core operating system is external, if the compute platforms are consolidated around a few chip giants, and the middleware is driven by an open ecosystem, what does the automaker actually own besides the bent metal?
It is a terrible dilemma. I mean, if an OEM demands complete control and tries to build the silicon and the operating system entirely themselves, it takes a decade and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
But if they lean on dependencies, say just buying an off-the-shelf brain from a tech giant, it's fast, but they risk becoming totally commoditized.
And that dependency introduces a massive strategic blind spot that almost no one is talking about. Seth Cronin brought this up. And if you are an executive or an engineer at a tier 1 supplier listening to this right now, this is why your partnership agreements are taking months to finalize.
Oh, the IP stuff.
Yes. When car makers and chip makers, let's use GM and NVIDIA as a hypothetical example here, when they co-develop these new AI hardware architectures, who actually owns the resulting intellectual property?
Hold on. Actually, I haven't thought about that. If it's a joint development agreement, wouldn't they just share the IP?
Well, in theory, yes. But Cronin emphasizes that these agreements are often signed quickly in the hype of a big press cycle. The actual IP provisions are left super vague.
That sounds dangerous.
Extremely. If you co-invent a new way for an AI chip to process radar data, and you don't clearly resolve who has the right to license that tech, you are setting a trap for yourself.
Right.
What happens 3 years later when the OEM wants to update the vehicle's code, but the chipmaker claims that update infringes on their underlying hardware patent?
Oh, wow. So you could literally end up legally paralyzed, unable to update your own fleet's software without getting sued by your own development partner.
Exactly. It becomes a catastrophic licensing nightmare. You have to secure those rights before a single line of code is written.
That is a massive hidden risk.
Ooh.
But despite the IP minefields, the ecosystem is expanding rapidly and is moving way beyond just controlling the infotainment screen.
Oh yeah, much further.
Brian Carlson noted that LG Energy Solution just joined the SDVs consortium to bring battery intelligence software into the ecosystem. We are moving from AI managing your Spotify playlist to AI managing the chemical degradation of your battery cells in real time to extend their lifespan.
And look at the sheer capital flowing into this expansion. Spencer Collins highlighted that chip giants ARM, AMD, Qualcomm just poured $1.2 billion into Wave.
Right.
That is a colossal bet on accelerating what they call embodied AI.
Okay, wait. What exactly differentiates embodied AI from the AI we already know?
So most AI right now is disembodied. It lives in a server somewhere. It processes text or images. Embodied AI means giving that intelligence a physical body, in this case a 2-ton vehicle, and letting it interact with the physical world.
Oh, I see.
It has to actually understand mass, momentum, physics, and human unpredictability in real space.
Which brings us to the most chilling part of this entire deep dive. We are talking about 2-ton vehicles with supercomputer brains, running billions of lines of code, constantly learning from their environments and interacting with third-party agents.
Yeah.
The security implications of that are terrifying. Amel Kadhiri and Christoph Horn both pointed out a fundamental paradigm shift happening right now. In the past, automotive cybersecurity was about securing static systems.
Right. You build a firewall, you look for known vulnerabilities in the code, and you catch them.
Exactly. But with an AI-defined vehicle, you are no longer securing static code. You are attempting to secure unpredictable behavior.
Because the system is reasoning, it's probabilistic, not deterministic.
Right. Once an AI system starts learning and deciding on the fly, testing every possible outcome becomes mathematically impossible. Your attack surface gets incredibly weird.
Horn and Kateri highlight threats like prompt injection attacks on voice assistants.
Wait, how does a prompt injection attack work in a physical car? I mean, I know you can trick a chatbot on a website, but what does that look like on the highway?
Okay, imagine you are driving and your vehicle is constantly listening for your intent-based commands.
Okay.
A bad actor could theoretically embed a malicious, inaudible audio frequency into a song playing on the radio, or encode a hidden prompt into a digital billboard you drive past.
You're kidding.
No, seriously. The vehicle's cameras or microphones pick up that data, and the AI interprets it as a command with administrative privileges, tricking it into unlocking the doors, disabling the brakes, or shutting down the battery management system.
That is horrifying.
It translates a digital logic trick into a real-world physical danger.
Wow. And if the behavior is that unpredictable, how do you even regulate it? Satya brought up this massive crisis brewing in certification.
Yes.
Agentic AI acts proactively. It can predict a hazard like a pedestrian acting erratically on the sidewalk and adjust the steering before the human driver even registers the threat.
Which is an incredible leap forward for safety.
It is. But Pradhan asks the ultimate question. How do you certify a safety system that never stops learning?
Well, under our current regulatory frameworks, you simply can't. The global functional safety standard for the automotive industry is ISO 26262. But that standard is built entirely on deterministic behavior.
Meaning, if X happens, the machine must always do Y.
Exactly. If the radar detects an object at exactly 5 meters, the brakes must apply with exactly this amount of force. That is testable. You can verify it.
Right.
But if the car has a reasoning AI, it might decide to brake on Tuesday, but on Wednesday, it might decide that swerving slightly into the next lane is a mathematically safer option based on wet road conditions it just learned about.
Oh, wow.
ISO 26262 simply wasn't written for machines that think and adapt. We are building probabilistic machines, and our regulatory agencies are still using deterministic rulebooks.
We are entirely flying blind from a regulatory standpoint, and the security issues go beyond just how the software behaves in traffic. It extends to the foundational identity of the vehicle itself.
Yeah, that's a whole other layer.
George Ripley noted that as vehicles become these massive, lucrative digital nodes, modern auto crime is shifting rapidly. He pointed out huge spikes in VIN cloning and fraudulent title activity.
Because if you can spoof a vehicle's digital identity, you can access its data streams, its payment gateways, or just sell a stolen car more easily.
Right. And Ripley argues that vehicle identity needs a complete overhaul. He suggests using blockchain and zero-knowledge proofs to secure the identity of the car on the network.
Interesting.
But hold on, I know blockchain from the crypto world, but how does a zero-knowledge proof actually stop someone from cloning a VIN number?
Okay, so the problem currently is that when a car authenticates itself to a network, say, to download an update or process a toll payment, it essentially broadcasts its underlying identity data.
Which a hacker could intercept.
Exactly. A zero-knowledge proof is a cryptographic method that allows the vehicle to mathematically prove to the network, I am an authentic, registered Mercedes C-Class, without actually revealing the underlying secret key or the explicit identity data itself.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Because the data is never broadcast, it cannot be intercepted and cloned by a thief.
That makes total sense. You verify the truth without exposing the proof. But even if we solve the individual identity of the car, Merrick Van Zura offered a very stark warning that scales this threat up to the geopolitical level.
Yeah, this part was intense.
Right. He argues that autonomous driving and AI vehicle intelligence are not just commercial features, they are national security assets.
This is such a critical point. Look at the sensor suite on an AIDV. You have millions of vehicles equipped with high-definition cameras, LiDAR, and radar.
Yeah.
They are mapping our cities in real time, down to the centimeter. They know traffic patterns, infrastructure vulnerabilities, and the movement of citizens.
These vehicles are basically roaming surveillance machines.
Exactly. And Van Zura points out that Europe is currently failing to protect this asset. By struggling with integration hell, European OEMs are increasingly relying on foreign technology stacks.
So they're losing control.
Right. They are acting mostly as hardware wrappers for external intelligence, and Van Zura warns that this leaves them incredibly vulnerable. If the underlying data pipelines and AI brains mapping your cities are controlled by entities outside your borders, you have a massive geopolitical blind spot driving down your own streets.
It is the ultimate Trojan horse, but it's parked in millions of driveways.
Truly.
Well, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. We started with the utopian hype of the AID, looked at the unsung hardware heroes fighting physical thermal limits, unraveled the IP minefields of deep tech partnerships, and finally stared down the existential safety and national security threats of building reasoning machines.
It is a complex web of challenges, but if we synthesize all these insights, it leaves us with a rather profound question to consider as we look to the future.
What's that?
As the mobility industry successfully pushes toward these true AI-defined vehicles, as our cars become these hyper-intelligent reasoning nodes in a vast digital ecosystem that never stops learning, predicting, and optimizing, at what point does the human driver sitting behind the wheel become the most unpredictable, risky, and outdated component in the entire vehicle architecture?
Wow. We literally become the legacy hardware. The human is the outdated ECU. That is definitely something for everyone to think about. If you enjoyed this episode, new episodes drop every 2 weeks. Also check out our other editions on electrification and battery technology, future mobility and market evolution, and commercial fleet insights.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the true state of vehicle intelligence. We hope this gave you a clearer picture of what's actually happening under the hood. Don't forget to subscribe to the feed so you don't miss the next one. Catch you next time.